at 8 on Granada. Donald Sutherland and Jane Fonda star in the thriller film Clute tonight at 10:40. From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Britain's move to rid the world of landmines. How the crackdown will target young tearaways. Hanging on the defiance of airport protesters. And uncorking a world record at the Great Wine Auction. Good evening. The new government committed Britain's full support today to a campaign for a worldwide ban on landmines. It announced a moratorium on their operational use with British forces and said our stocks would be destroyed by the year 2005. British companies will be forbidden to make or trade in them. Prime Minister Tony Blair said landmines had caused enormous carnage, often to innocent civilians and children, and Britain had to take a lead in getting rid of them. Our defence correspondent Penny Marshall reports.
Britain will now join the international initiative to secure a global ban on landmines and halt the misery they cause. Today's announcement therefore marks a significant shift in foreign policy.
We will ban the import, export, transfer and manufacture of anti-personnel. We will also phase out the UK stocks of such anti-personnel landmines. We will, in addition, make sure that we ban the trade through the United Kingdom of all such landmines.
The move follows high-profile campaigning by Diana, Princess of Wales, who earlier this year visited Angola to highlight the plight of landmine victims. Her trip attracted some criticism at the time. It's estimated there are 190 million active mines laid across the world in 71 countries. There are around 10 million in Cambodia alone, 6 million in Bosnia, 15 million in Angola, and the legacy of the conflict, 25,000 in the Falklands. In all, mines kill 800 people a month worldwide.
I think the announcement this afternoon takes us one stage further towards what we hope will be a global ban. The difference, I think, is that the British government now seem to be saying that they want to play a very active and central part in this whole process.
Britain's armed forces last used landmines during the Gulf War. Military chiefs say they remain an important tool and don't cause humanitarian problems if used correctly. They asked for an emergency opt-out clause from the ban and got it. Robin Cook has wasted no time signalling this change in policy. But the fact that service chiefs have won the right to ask for the ban to be lifted in exceptional circumstances has left them satisfied that at least the new government is listening to their needs. The RAF in particular will be hit. Its runway-busting scatter bomb, the JP-233, is now banned. It must develop a long-term alternative. China and Russia are the main exporters of landmines. Britain has not exported or manufactured them for years. In practical terms, today's ban will have little effect in the UK, but diplomatically it could have an impact if the call for a worldwide ban gathers momentum. Penny Marshall, News at 10 at the Ministry of Defence.
The issue of landmines came up at the first of Mr Blair's new-style Prime Minister's Question Time in the Commons today. In the half-hour session, he also fielded questions about the windfall tax, the beef ban, Northern Ireland and local bus services. Our political editor, Michael Brunson, saw how the new procedure worked.
3 p.m. on a Wednesday and not 3:15 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's when you now need to be at the Commons or switch on your telly to see the Prime Minister held to account. He, of course, still needs to do his homework, as he did in the Cabinet Room before leaving for the Commons, especially as the once-weekly half-hour session is meant to encourage questioning in greater depth. Frankly, today was hardly a serious test of the new arrangements. The Tory opposition is all over the place, still confining itself to jabbing at Tony Blair's determination to change things.
I warmly welcome the Prime Minister to his role of answering questions, and I'm very grateful to him for finding time in his diary to do so.
Mr Paddy Ashdown.
Speaker, may I first of all welcome the Prime Minister's attempt to find a new format for Prime Minister's questions.
Liberal Democrats are the immediate beneficiaries of the new system. For the first time, their leader gets a second follow-up question. John Major's heart wasn't quite in it all, though he immediately showed that the Prime Minister noticed that in opposition a soundbite on the likely effects of a windfall tax can be useful.
The populist tax he proposes on fat cats would in fact be a tax that hits most those that have least.
No, Madam Speaker. No. No, I shall resist the temptation to say that was the soundbite, since I know... since I have a feeling I used to use a few of those myself at one time.
There was less yaboo. More ground was covered, though when the going gets rough, Mr. Blair may find that 30 minutes rather than 15 at the dispatch box is an eternity. But in all, this is a change which now seems certain to stay. And the pace of change will be kept up tomorrow, when Tony Blair and Frank Dobson, the new Health Secretary, will indicate precisely how they will save the first slab of the £100 million they intend to within the health service, first of all by tackling internal management procedures, that money to go directly in the first instance to the care of cancer patients. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Westminster.
The Governor of the Bank of England, Eddie George, confirmed tonight he did consider resigning over the government's reforms to the financial system. The Governor, here on the right with his Deputy Howard Davies, said he was worried about how his staff would react to the Chancellor's decision to strip the bank of its responsibility for regulating high street banks. The Home Secretary Jack Straw announced today that he's appointing a task force of experts to shake up the youth justice system. He told the Police Federation the present system was slow and wasteful and too often reinforced youth crime rather than nipping it in the bud. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent Harry Smith.
For his first big speech as Home Secretary, Jack Straw chose an audience he'd come to know well in opposition. And they gave him a warm welcome as they did his promise to crack down on youth crime with a new task force of experts to lead the way. To those listening to him, this is a scene which has become all too familiar. Two teenagers caught on a security video violently attacking a shopkeeper and then ripping out his till and making off with hundreds of pounds. This camera caught a youth casually stealing from a car through a window which had just been smashed by another youngster. Mr. Straw said the criminal justice system was too slow to intervene, was inconsistent and lax.
The task force will represent a significant change of approach. Too often in recent years, we've seen change by diktat. I want change based on consent, openness and partnership. And I want to shed some much-needed light on the workings of that failing youth justice system.
Among the reforms the task force will look at a fast-track system to process juveniles through the courts, a final police warning to replace repeated cautions, and child protection orders which will impose a curfew to keep troublesome youngsters off the streets at night. The plans were given a guarded welcome by other professionals in the youth justice system.
It really is the rehabilitation that will prevent young offenders offending again, and that really is what it's all about, and that's what we're all working towards.
Behind the new task force lies the belief that the problem can't be solved by legislation alone. The Home Secretary believes that new laws in the past have failed because they couldn't be enforced on the streets. The task force will be asked to iron out such problems before new legislation is published early next year. Harry Smith, News at 10 at the Police Federation Conference in Blackpool.
Sir Archie Hamilton, former Defence Minister and a right-winger, was tonight elected chairman of the 1922 Committee of Conservative Backbench MPs. His first task will be the important one of organising the election of a new Conservative Party leader. He said work on that would start tomorrow. Our political correspondent Hugh Pibb reports.
The new voice of Conservative